Y'all, we need to talk about the DEI hire. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. Y'all, I don't even know where to start with this foolishness. Um, it's crazy because at first I said, when I first heard what she said, and I'm gonna bring you guys up to speed and tell you what happened, but at first when I heard it, I was like, okay, maybe I didn't hear what I heard. So let me go and try to listen for the broader clip to get some context. But no, my ears were not deceiving me, and I heard what I heard. So, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, for whatever reason, thinks that Black Americans are disabled. Y'all, we need social and cultural and political wheelchairs. Like, who knew? Who knew? Y'all, this woman, she actually said that being Black is kind of like being handicapped, right? Like, we need like some special ramp and government accommodations just so we can function in society, especially when it comes to voting. And so, y'all, I guess our melanin is no longer just a reflection of God's glory in the earth, right? It's a malfunction. Our melanin is a malfunction, and our ethnicity is a disability. So, y'all, this woman is dumber than I thought. She really is. And y'all can thank former President Biden for the gift that just keeps on giving. So before we get into the commentary, what I will say is, y'all, anybody, y'all, keep your kids away from this woman. If your children are school age and they're being taught to look up to Ketanji Brown Jackson because she's the first Black female Supreme Court justice, no, keep this woman far away from your kids, because they will just be the lowest achievers and just embrace victimhood and inferiority. If you allow your kids to look up to her, that's what you're gonna walk away with. Keep her away from your kids, and I wish there was a way we could get this broad off the Supreme Court bench before she starts passing out a racial service dog. That's where we're headed next. Y'all, we all gonna have little CNI dogs because we disabled. But here's what I will say. This is liberalism at its most insulting. That's what this is. I mean, these darn liberals, they are so low down. They have sunk to a new low. And y'all, I didn't think that they could go any lower. It's the condescending compassion of people who think, that, well, they're in the Ivy League. And so I'm going to call it Ivy League pity. They believe that their Ivy League pity is a public service. So we're just going to talk about it today. Today, we're going to expose the bigotry of low expectations. And it came straight from the Supreme Court itself. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cue up the clip because y'all kind of got to hear it for yourselves. You got to hear it for yourselves. And so right now, that is what's been brought before the Supreme Court is this whole concept of race-based gerrymandering. It's kind of where you draw these little funky shaped voting districts and you try to like corral all the Black people into one district. So this is why, like, within a whole state, instead of a district being contiguous, it will span across the whole state, then dip down and then loop around. Like, it's just really funky looking and really weird. And so the reason why they've done that, and it's based off of the original Voting Rights Act and the decision that came down. But during Ketanji Brown Jackson's oral arguments, when they were discussing, maybe it's because my lips are dry. I can't talk. I didn't mean discussing. There's no SH in that word. Oh, it's getting late. I got Newsmax in the morning, y'all. I got to get up off of here. But they were discussing, Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, and they were discussing whether or not they should allow race-based gerrymandering. And Justice Jackson, she decided to make one of the most ignorant, insulting comparisons that I've ever heard. So we need Y'all gotta take a listen to it in her own words. It's short, I promise.
I guess I'm thinking of it, of the fact that remedial action, absent discriminatory intent, is really not a new idea in the civil rights laws. And my kind of paradigmatic example of this is something like the ADA. Congress passed the Americans with Disabilities Act against the backdrop of a world that was generally not accessible to people with disabilities. And so it was discriminatory in effect because these folks were not able to access these buildings. And it didn't matter whether the person who built the building or the person who owned the building intended for them to be exclusionary. That's irrelevant. Congress said the facilities have to be made equally open to people with disabilities if readily possible. I guess I don't understand why that's not what's happening here. The idea in Section 2 is that we are responding to current day manifestations of past and present decisions that disadvantage minorities and make it so that they don't have equal access to the voting system, right? They're disabled. In fact, we use the word disable in Milligan. We say that's a way in which you see that these processes are not equally open.
Okay.
Flag on the play.
Yeah. It gets bad. All right, so let me move this back. I can't look at her anymore. I'm done. So essentially, in summary, this is not the whole oral argument, but in summary, Justice Jackson, she compared Black Americans to, she likened us to disabled people under the American for Disabilities Act, the ADA. So somehow this woman managed to reason according to her logic, if you can call it that, that just as handicapped people kind of need ramps and special accommodations to access buildings, Black folks, we need government imposed accommodations to access democracy. So what she's really saying is that, y'all, our very Blackness itself, it's a handicap, right? Like, if our Blackness is a handicap, then that means, y'all, we can't help it. Like, we can't help, like, it's not even our fault. There's nothing we can do because Blackness is a disability. I mean, what other conclusion am I supposed to draw from this? We are, by our very nature, so limited, so deficient, that unless big government builds us a political wheelchair or some legislative crutches, we can't possibly function like everybody else. So, because of that, y'all, we need racial gerrymandering so that we can have, wait for this part, we need racial gerrymandering so that we can have Black politicians, Black representation, because since they Black, they're familiar with our disability, right? So we need them to represent us. But here's the struggle. I'm struggling to understand, how is this supposed to work, Ketanji? Like, if we're disabled by nature of us just being Black, then how then are the Black politicians, how are they able to help us or represent us if they too suffer from the same disability of Blackness? How does that work? I mean, like, did the disability just skip over them, or did becoming a Black politician or a Black leader, did that cure them of their disability? Are they healed now? Right? Well, is it just some sort of miraculous, like they got touched and now the disability that the rest of us had, they don't have it. So they're fit to lead over us. I'm trying to understand how this works. I mean, I'm just asking questions. Can anyone make this make sense for me? I don't think you can, because it's just dumb. But here's the answer. I figured it out. Y'all sat and I thought long and hard about this. I called Vince. I was like, bro, listen. Did I hear her correctly? And what I surmised is that the disability didn't skip over her and other blacks, like people like Ketanji. It didn't skip over them. The reason why they're able to posture themselves in the position to lead over us and why we need black representation, because our disability, is because they know what's best for us. Like she and them, right? They've anointed themselves as being fit and qualified. Y'all, this is the talented 10th doctrine. That's what this is. This is that old W.E.B. Du Bois, only the creme de la creme. We can put them in charge to help the poor disabled blacks. They suffer so much. They're just so inferior, Y'all don't know where these accents be coming from. But listen, here it is. Here it is. They know what's best for us. She is there, or these black politicians have achieved, because they were chosen by a white liberal to help work on behalf of the disabled blacks. I said, oh, okay, I get it. So this is the sum of DEI. This is why I know. Don't tell me that DEI is about getting rid of discrimination. No, it is about controlling the discrimination. How so? They want to control which blacks are in power. Because see, President Biden would not have tagged a black female conservative. No, that's the wrong kind of black. No, DEI is about controlling discrimination in the sense that they want to control which blacks are in power. They need your Jasmine Crockett types. They need your Jim Clyburn types. They need the Maxine Water types, the talented 10th, the ones that know what's best. I've always been good to you coloreds. That's what they want. They need the racial gerrymandering, because outside of a majority black district that's, controlled by the talented 10th blacks, someone like a Jasmine Crockett or a James Clyburn would never win. They can't win an election based on their ideas. Like, no white person with good sense is going to vote for them, not because they're black, but because their policies are trash. And this is what terrifies them. They don't have mass appeal. The vast majority of Americans would never vote for them or their godless ideas. So they have to map and lump all of the blacks together so that they can stay in power. I cracked the code. Well, I didn't crack the code by myself, right? I didn't, but I figured out that this is what it's all about. The talented 10th blacks, the ones that's over the disabled blacks, they can't compete without DEI or gerrymandering. This is why they go so hard for it. They fight so hard for DEI because they know if it came down to merit, they wouldn't have access. Right? When you look at somebody like a Byron Donalds or Wesley Hunt, they did not need racial gerrymandering. How is it that they were able to win in white districts? Because their ideas were just better. Nobody gave a darn that they were black. I know y'all ain't gonna like that example, but it's the truth. It's just the truth. In my opinion, in 2025, we shouldn't have anything based on race in America anymore. Because here's the reality. Either we are capable of winning, or it's true that we're disabled. Like, you're gonna have to pick a struggle. You can't have it both ways. Either merit is what it's based on, or you have to concede the argument that you are disabled, that you are deficient, that you are inferior. This is what the wokey woke blackity blacks are arguing for. I don't think they've realized it, but What other conclusion can you draw if you argue for DEI so hard, and if you agree with her oral argument, you agree and affirm that you are inferior, you are deficient, you can't compete, and you're disabled. Your blackness is an impediment. Now, hear me clearly. If you were to ask Justice Jackson, how is it that she managed to just get ahead? Or how is it that some blacks are successful and some aren't? She's not going to answer that honestly. I don't expect Justice Jackson or any of the pro wokety woke blackety black social justicians to be able to answer that question honestly. I really don't expect her to answer it. And it's because this is the same woman who couldn't define what a woman was. And now she's out here redefining what it means to be black. And I am sure she'll say that she can't explain it or how any of this is supposed to work because she's not a biologist. That's what she wasn't. She couldn't define what a woman was because she wasn't a biologist. And now she'll probably claim that I'm not a physical therapist or a genetic specialist. Y'all, this is the clown town that we are living in. This is clown town. The fact that this woman sits on the Supreme Court should terrify you. She is not interpreting the Constitution. She is interpreting blackness through the lens of victimhood and oppression. Y'all, that's a cultural Marxist. We have a cultural Marxist on the bench, and she was ushered in under the banner of DEI. How did y'all not see this Trojan horse? I don't know. It ain't that people didn't see it. They knew exactly what it was, and they signed up for their own bigotry of low expectations. This is why you have to call this soft racism of liberal piety. This is why I don't want a darn thing from the government, especially liberals. Keep those people and their ideas away from me. Their racism, their elitism, it is so obvious and evil. This is the liberal pity that she and others like her lavish on you. When elitist progressives, when they believe that they're doing us a favor by treating us like some fragile houseplants who need daily watering from the government. I'm sorry. I don't need that. This is why they don't see us as equals. We're not equals, y'all. We're projects. This little pet projects, people to be managed, and they need supervision, right? And we've got to give them a voice because apparently God forgot to give us one of our own, so they need to speak for us. No, I reject it. When you think about this at a very fundamental, basic level, that is the spirit behind every DEI initiative, every affirmative action program, every liberal policy that pretends to help you while quietly declaring you're incapable. You're incapable. You're deficient. Oh, you need crutches because you're disabled, because you're black, right? To think that to think that we got black folks out here defending this. Right? We have black people boycotting corporations over DEI. I saw a graphic the other day. We got some people out here doing whole conferences trying to bring this mess into the church. I saw a graphic of a pro wokety woke racist black social justician partnering with probably a woke white liberal doing a conference about DEI biblically. What? Boy, if you ain't out here desperate, anyway, I ain't gonna give them the time of day. Y'all, this comes down to the fact that liberalism, they'll never see your potential. All they see is your alleged and supposed pain. Like they just assume you in pain. They'll never celebrate your human existence, but they are quick to elevate and celebrate your excuses. So that means if you're one of the blacks, a Negro, a colored person, whatever you want to call yourself, and instead of you standing in the social authority and biblical humility of saying, no, God created me. He gave me a will, a mind. He gave me emotions. He gave me the fortitude to achieve. And he gave me the skill set to achieve whatever it is that he wants me to achieve this side of heaven. When you don't embrace that and instead you tune in and you dial into the excuses, they'll call that justice. They will make way for you to wallow in your self-pity and to wallow in some perceived oppression, because now you actually have an excuse. You're disabled. So now you need a disability check, I guess. I don't know. Is that what's coming next? Blacks are disabled, so now we got to put some money in the budget for them because, they can't help the blackness. Can't wash it off. This is amazing. But here's where it gets rich, you guys. Justice Jackson herself, she is in a way living proof that entire argument is bogus, because she is sitting on the highest court in the land. She's got the robe and I assume a pretty impressive resume. And I was going to say the respect, but maybe she got the first two, but not the respect, because the respect part is suspect. She doesn't have my respect. Why? Clearly her disability of the blackness, it didn't stop her confirmation hearing, even though it should have. It should have. But because of DEI, despite her having bad ideas and not being able to define what a woman is on just her mere blackness alone, this woman was confirmed. So my question, what is it, Justice Jackson? Are you the exception to your own rule? Because technically, she is a DEI appointee. So perhaps this is why she believes this mess. I don't know. Perhaps let's just move it aside from her. Since she's a textbook case of DEI gone bad, what I'd like to ask you guys, how do we explain so many other Black people who are not recipients of DEI? How do we explain their success? How do we do it? Because if you really believe that Black people are inherently disabled by the color of their skin, how do you explain so many Black Americans who are just wildly successful, regardless of the fact that they are Black? I mean, we don't do this in sports. LeBron James is not LeBron James because he's Black. LeBron James is where he is because he's the best. Why don't we apply the same argument to sports? Where on that field, your skill set is laid bare. Either you have it or you don't. And no one cares about your excuses and how you grew up and where you came from. Nobody cares. Can you run that ball or not? I was talking about basketball, but I've shifted to football because football was on my mind. So I said LeBron James. But I mean, either you're a good quarterback or you're not. Either you can run the ball as a running back or you're a wide receiver or you suck. DI has nothing to do with it. Colin Kaepernick doesn't have a job right now because he just wasn't that talented. He's he just wasn't that talented. But to be fair, as it relates to Ketanji Brown Jackson, I'd argue that in her case, she had the right political party carrying her up the steps. But the truth is, under normal circumstances, okay, so what about everyone else? How do you explain their success? We can make an exception for her because she is DEI. But my question is, does merit mean anything anymore? To the woke justicians and the pro-blackity blacks, they believe because of this kind of reasoning and argumentation that they are inferior. And you know why we have to believe them, you guys? Because they're always talking about white supremacy. The fact that you even acknowledge such a category tells me that you're the inferior one, because I'm not walking around acknowledging nobody's supremacy over me. I'm like, what? What you mean? White supremacy? Oh, yeah. I don't even talk in those kinds of categories. But here's a thought. Do you realize that if conservatives had said half of what this woman implied in these oral arguments, that the media would be burning down DC to the ground screaming racism? You do realize that's what would happen. But she gets a pass because she's a liberal. And white liberals already believe that blacks are handicapped anyway, and that we need them to lift us up and to help us. And then the black liberal believes it too, because they're always the one begging for a seat at the table on the basis of their blackness. So this is crazy. If a conservative has said this, it'd be racism. But when a black liberal does it, suddenly she's brave and it's nuanced and historic. No, this is hypocritical and demeaning. And quite frankly, it's very disgusting. This is shameful and embarrassing that out of all the people on the court, she's the laughing stock. And black people can't see it. And they're like, celebrating what she said as if it was deep and pensive and novel, as opposed to saying this woman she just insulted us and said that we're disabled because we're black, which means your creator created an entire race of just deficient, incapable people that had it not been for the white man, Lord knows where we'd be right now. That is some serious idolatry. That is messed up. But I'm gonna say something. Y'all know me, I always gotta say something a little too spicy that might make some people clutch their pearls, but you will be okay. I'm gonna say something it's probably gonna make you uncomfortable, but the truth has never needed comfort. Okay, it just needs clarity. So here it is. When I look at Ketanji Brown Jackson and I listen to her words and I kind of examine her rise, as well as so many other black liberal females, why is it that so many of these black elites, they preach victimhood, yet they're married to white liberals? Isn't it weird?
Flag on the plate.
I'm just asking questions, right? Like it seems to me that the people who are most convinced that black Americans can't make it without the white man's help usually have one at home. Now hear me clearly. I don't even care like who you're married to, but I just noticed the common theme with all these black liberals, right? Like maybe I don't know, maybe they needed that kind of help to rise. But for the rest of us normies, we're just like, we've been doing just fine without it. Like we didn't even know we was handicapped. So forgive me if I refuse to take lectures on racial disadvantage from people who literally sleep next to their supposed oppressor every night. Like you sleep with him every night. Make it make sense. Now, hear me clearly. I don't believe that white people are the oppressor. I don't. I don't acknowledge such categories. But these are the people who claim that white people are the problem, yet they're married to one. How does this work? How does it work? Maybe someone can tell me. How is it that their white spouses are exempt from the oppression? Because I'm genuinely confused. I don't know. But do you know why? You guys, why I simply cannot co-sign to any of the foolishness that came out of Justice Jackson's mouth. I can't co-sign it because I am compelled. Okay, yeah, I took a shot at her white husband, but let me explain it. I'm compelled by biblical conviction. I have to ground all of her foolishness in the truth. Here's my epistemology and what I believe, right? Acts 17:26 explains it perfectly. And I'll tell you, Acts 17:26 reminds us that he, God, made from one man every nation of mankind to live on the face of the earth. So if I believe that, that means that equality is not something that Congress can grant. It is something that God created. My blackness is not a disability. Okay? I also affirm Galatians 3:28, which says there's neither Jew nor Greek, slave nor free, male nor female, For you are all, those of us who are believers, we're one in Christ Jesus. So that means for those of us in the household of faith, and even those that are not, that are just God's creation, he made all of us from one man. So that tells me that the gospel doesn't need diversity training. Okay? God's kingdom doesn't need affirmative action. It doesn't need any of that. The church doesn't need some sort of racial ramp for the blacks, right? What we need, regardless of the context, is repentance. We all need redemption from our sin, and we all need to be responsible for our own actions and the decisions that we make or fail to make. That's what I believe. So in the grand scheme of things, true equality is not going to come from legislation. It comes from us being liberated, but not from systems. I'm talking about the kind of liberation that only Jesus can give you. And that's the problem. These people's minds are warped because it doesn't begin with the knowledge of God, and their hearts are darkened because they are following the pattern of the God of this world, right? Was it Ephesians 2, saying these people are dead in their sins and trespasses. This is why they can't think clearly. And they say stupid stuff like this. Well, it's like a disability. I'm like, is it? Tell me more. Tell me more about my disability, right? Do I have to get regular checkups? Do I need to be fitted for braces? Right? Do I start with like a baby wheelchair and then work my way up? How does this work, Ketanji? This is crazy. She ain't gonna never live this one down. I'm sorry. I ain't gonna be able to let this one go. But listen, let's deal with the political lie. The political lie is that the left loves to act like black people can't access the ballot box. Have you ever noticed, you listen to Democrats, like if you go on Jasmine Crockett's congressional website and all of the members of the Congressional Black Caucus, they always put that in their campaign platform is voting rights. And for the life of me, I'm like, what voting rights are these people talking about? We have the right to vote. What are they fighting for? And what I realized is that they absolutely are championing voting rights, but it's not for us. It's for the illegals. And they're also championing for voting rights. They want to make it easier for you to cheat and all kinds of ballot shenanigans. But the political lie that the left tries to push that black people don't have access to the ballot box and that we are somehow being disenfranchised by evil Republicans with voter ID laws. I'm like, there go that low bigotry of expectations again. Like, so blacks, we don't have IDs. My son is 17 years old and he has a permit. That's an ID. Like, he got it all by himself, all his by his lonesome. He didn't need any help from the government to get it outside of going to the Department of Motor Vehicles and filling out the paperwork and taking a test. The argument is that we are disenfranchised by the evil Republicans because we black. But the data says otherwise. The data shows that black voter turnout in states like Georgia and Florida, you guys, outpace white voter turnout. So is it Southern, like, because of the heat? I get it. Because of the heat in Georgia and Florida is somehow, we closer to the equator and the sun and the way our bodies process, like the melanin from the sun. Those people are enabled to figure it out. But maybe it's the northern blacks that can't because they're too far away from the sun. Like, I don't know. I'm making stuff up as I go, just like they are. It makes no sense. So somebody has to explain, why is it voter turnout in states like Georgia and Florida outpace that of white voter turnout? The blacks in those states don't have no problem accessing the ballot box. I don't know. Listen, if we're disabled, we sure do a lot of standing in line for folks who can't find a polling place. I don't know how we're able to do it. I don't know. But here's the truth. The Democrat Party, they need us to feel oppressed. They need it. They need us to feel oppressed because victimhood, that is the fuel that keeps their political plantation running. So they have to constantly remind you that, it's a disability. Your Blackness, it's inherent. It's endemic to who you are. And without the government, we don't know what you do. Y'all, these Democrats without victims, there's nothing to virtue signal. They have to have grievance because unless you're grieved, they can't be government as savior. And they got to keep you dependent because without dependency, there's no Democrat power. That's the truth. So y'all, we are not disabled. Especially if you're in Christ, you've been delivered, but you ain't disabled. I know they start with a D and they sound, no. Justice Jackson's comments were incredibly tone deaf. And I think the common Black person should really hear her comments in light of her being a Black elite. She's not one of you. She's saying, see, the disability doesn't affect her like it affects you because she's the talented 10th, right? The rest of us, it's affecting us. So when you hear her comments, they were very much tone deaf and very telling because she exposed what she really thinks, right? As a Black liberal, she revealed exactly how liberals view Black Americans. You're just perpetual patients in the hospital of history. And it's a disability. But here's the truth, you guys. We are not disabled. I reject that claim. I laugh at this clown of a Supreme Court justice. She deserves to be shamed. You guys, for one, I'm a Christian. And so even in light of that, we're descendants of overcomers. I don't understand why we don't view ourselves this way. We're always talking about how we built the country, yet when it's time to pull on that strength of us being innovators and thinkers and builders and warriors, you go from building everything to being a victim. I understand how it works. Pick a struggle. Either you built this country or none of that means anything because you are a perpetual victim. How is a people who survived slavery and segregation and systemic sabotage at the hands of Democrats? Please let us not forget that part. How are you? You're a survivor of all of that, and yet you are still here and you are still standing, but yet you're a victim? No, I reject that. Here's what we don't need another civil rights crutch. We don't need that. We need courage, conviction, and the light of Christ. That's what we need. There are too many scriptures, and we're supposed to be like the church-going folk. We love to quote, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And we like to use that as a motivational poster. But y'all, that is a declaration of divine empowerment that no matter your circumstances, not that you can climb a mountain, but whether you are in plenty or in want, hungry or you've just got the world's your oyster, you can do all things because it is Christ who strengthens you. So the next time a liberal wants to tell you and sell you that, oh, you're oppressed, all you got to do is smile and be like, sweetheart, you need to speak for yourself. Okay. You cannot be talking about me. So I had to cover this. I am curious to know what you guys think. But this sounded as if Ketanji was arguing that in the way that the handicapped person needs accommodations because their disability either limits or inhabits them from, did I say inhabits? Y'all, I can't talk. It's late. Inhibit, meaning to prevent. Normally, I'd be talking so fast, I wouldn't have caught that, but I caught that one. It inhibits us, the disabled Blacks, from accessing places and spaces like the like the disabled people. She's basically saying, like, in the same way, blacks too are disabled. I just need to know who agrees with that. Like, do you believe that our ethnic expression, because of it, that we need special accommodations because the nature of us just being black? I don't know. I want to know if there's someone out there that believes that. Because I tell you, these darn liberals, they sure are low down. They are the lowest of the low. And you should be insulted.